Thanks for clicking play, however you're watching or listening. My name is Louie B. I'm the digital host for the Hamilton Ticats, and I'm very excited to be bringing you the first episode of our brand new Ticats 2021 season preview presented by TELUS. All this week leading up to training camp, we'll be focusing on a different position group, and we'll be joined by coaches, players, CFL analysts, and Ticats alumni to try and catch you up on everything that has happened since the Ticats last took the field. Coming up on today's show, we are focusing on the offensive line. We'll highlight some of the changes, new faces, and expectations with O-line coach Mike Gibson. We'll catch up with reigning Ticats most outstanding Canadian and two-time CFL All-Star Brandon Revenberg. The CFL and TSN's Rod Smith will be by to give us his thoughts on the season, and we'll wrap up the episode with a conversation with one of the best to play the position, Marwan Hage. So sit back, relax, and don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to catch up on everything you need to know about the Ticats heading into the season. And let's get right into it with my conversation with offensive line coach Mike Gibson. So if we're talking about the offensive line, who better to talk to than the offensive line coach? That is Mike Gibson, and he's on your screen right there. Mike, it is great to see you, Coach Gibson. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. And as I always say, when people say it's great to see you, well, it's great to be seen, let me tell you.
Well, it is great to see you. And for those who are listening on the podcast, it's great to hear your voice as well. I don't want to forget about our podcast listeners. But I do want to talk about this offensive line because you are new. You were hired in January of 2020, haven't worked a game yet. So you have to be pretty excited to be at the stadium, to be around the coaches in person. That's got to be pretty cool for you right now.
Yes, it does. I'm very fortunate. The only job I've ever had is coaching, and I really missed it last year. We met a lot and we worked a lot on Zoom meetings and things like that, but it's not the same as being around guys face-to-face and preparing for a season, preparing for games, preparing for training camp and everything like that. So it's an exciting time. We're busy. We've all been here couple weeks in quarantine and things like that, and this is the first week we've all been together in the office, so it is good to see everybody and be around everybody.
What drew you to this organization? Obviously a job offer, but what impressed you about what they built here? What impressed you about the coaching staff? Why did you decide to come to Hamilton?
Well, I was here in 2009 and 2010, and the organization is first class. I know that from experience. I've known a lot of the coaches on this staff for a long time. Tommy Condell and me go back to the States ages ago. And, Orlando, what he did last year in 2019 as a first-time head coach was very impressive. I've always been impressed with his defenses and how his players played, and that just carried over to him being a head coach. Mark Washington and myself have known each other for ages. So there was a lot of familiar faces here, number one. A lot of people I respected a great deal, and they got good players. And it's always good to go where you have good players because no matter how good a coach you are, you're always better with great players. And so I'm really looking forward to that. But all those things, Bob Young, Scott Mitchell, Sean Burke, guys who I was here with in the past, but people who I have a lot of respect for.
Let's talk about this offensive line because there is a lot of continuation coming in from 2019. Again, you weren't part of that team, but obviously the success that they had. How much easier does that make your job? Maybe not easier, but how much easier does that make your job knowing there's a continuation from 2019?
Right. Well, I think that number one, obviously, you like having veteran players. And you like having players who have worked together because I always say there's two types of communication. There's verbal communication and there's nonverbal communication. These guys have both. They can look at a front, look at what the defense is presenting them, and they know what to do. And so that is a comfort level for them and also for me. I'd like to think I'm bringing some new things to the table. We're going to look somewhat different up front in how we do things, but the base core is going to be the same. Wherever I've been very fortunate. I've worked with some good offensive lines. I think this is without a doubt the most athletic offensive line I worked with, and so I'm excited for that standpoint. I guess if I have a reputation in this league, it's I'm a technician. I believe in technique, And I believe that the offensive line is a position that requires great technique. So hopefully I can add some things to their toolboxes that they already have. They're already good players, and hopefully I can just help them become even better players, and that's our goal.
I mean, it really is a perfect mix of guys who have been in the league a while, guys who have seen a lot of stuff, but can still be at the top of their game. So, I mean, just to throw out a couple names here, when Coulter Woodmansey comes into training camp and he sees Chris Van Zyl, someone he's looked up to in 10 years, that really is kind of the perfect opportunity for them to be able to teach each other, and for Chris and for you to really inspire this young group of guys that you do have.
Yes, I mean, without a doubt, Chris is the most veteran of the group. And then with Mike Filer coming back, Mike brings a lot of experience. Sirocco's played a lot, Revenberg's played a lot. So, for a young kid coming into this program, it is good because they have veterans who've seen a lot. And I give these veterans a lot of credit because they've welcomed the new guys in the weight room and things like that. And they've worked with them even though we didn't have a chance to go in camp and play last year. They've been together in the weight room and they got to know each other and things like that. And the biggest thing you want of your offensive line, you want 5 guys acting as one, seeing it the same way and so forth. So I think that with that veteran leadership, the camaraderie that they have, I've always felt that the most successful teams are the teams that have a cohesive offensive and defensive line, guys that are comfortable with each other, guys that like being around each other. And I think, we've taken the steps, even though we didn't play in 2020, this team has taken the steps to make those new guys feel comfortable. And so I think we're all excited about, in the next week getting to camp.
Coulter was the 5th overall pick back in the 2020 draft. Obviously, you had a big say in that. What did you like about him? What did you like about what he did in Guelph, and what are you hoping that he can kind of transition to this Ticats group?
Well, I like his versatility. He's played guard and tackle. We're teaching him how to play center a little bit, how to snap the ball also. So he's going to bring a lot of versatility to us. He's a good-sized young man. He's got long arms. He works hard. I mean, in the weight room, he's worked really hard in the last year. I think, you like his work ethic, number one. You like his size, number two. And you like I believe just in our Zoom meetings that we've had and so forth, he's a guy that wants to be good. And so that's always important. He seems to be a guy that he's a smart guy. And I know that. And he seems to understand what we're trying to accomplish and what we're doing. So all those things are obviously pluses, and the thing we have to do, we just got to get him experience and going against a better caliber player, going against different defenses and things like that. But, he's someone I'm looking very forward to working with.
You mentioned his size, and obviously you can't teach size. And I think someone who's going to stand out at camp physically, literally, would be Scotty Dill at 6'7" and 295. Played with the Atlanta Hawks last year, was on their practice, signed by the Atlanta Hawks, Falcons, getting my teams mixed up there. There you go. Signing with the Falcons. But again, big guy. How do you transition that NFL experience, that U.S. college experience into the Canadian game?
Well, Scotty's a unique individual because he's played tackle, but he also was a tight end in his past. So he's athletic. And so, the biggest thing I tell all the Americans, and it's my experience in being in this league for as long as I have and coming from the States, everybody's concerned about that yard off. That yard off gets eaten up in a hurry. So really the techniques are not that different. The caliber of athlete they're going to see is a little bit different. Defensive linemen up here are maybe not as big as some of the defensive linemen down in the States, but they're much quicker, because it's a game of quickness and so forth. They're with the smaller size, you'd expect quicker athletes and things like that. So it's just the ability of the speed rushers off the edge. If, at the tackle positions, Willie Jeffersons that he's going to see, the Charleston Hughes, those type people, he just got to get used to them because, in the NFL, he saw speed guys and he saw powerful guys, but here, it's a combination of both, I think. And I think the big thing for him is just going to be getting comfortable playing out of both the right and the left-handed stance. those type deals. He's primarily been a right tackle, so we're going to move him over to the left side and give him opportunity there. And then he'll get some work at right tackle too. But even though it's a tackle position, playing from the left to the right is different footwork and things like that. You have to kind of flip it around. So those are going to be the biggest challenges for him.
I think another player that people are going to have their eye on is Jesse Gibbon, who had a great, didn't start until later, but obviously was a big key impact player for the Ticats, able to kind of pick and play. How do you expect him to kind of make the jump here in year two for him?
Well, I think, first of all, I think Jesse's done a great job with Ike Brown, down in the weight room. His body's just a little bit different. He looks different a little bit. He looks more solid and things like that. So that I give him a lot of credit for what he's done in the last year and a half in the weight room. It's time for him to step up. I mean, he's learned, he's been a backup, so to speak, then he got an opportunity to play. And so now it's his time to just take a hold of position and to win that position and to say, hey, this is my position. I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to win this position and take it from there. Again, he's a young man who's athletic. With the added strength and the development down in the weight room, I think that he's ready to take the next step. And it'll be interesting to watch his development and also watch him during camp just to see how he grows and, to see how he accomplishes his goals. He's got high goals for himself. And so I'm excited again to see him as well compete in training camp. The great thing about us is we've got a really good defensive line. And, these guys are going to go against as good as players as they're going to see from other teams. So the competition you would think would make us all better. But it also, they say cream rises to the top, right? So when you get to go against a Dylan Wynn, a Teddy, when you get to go against those kind of people, you have to answer the challenge. And so I think Jesse's looking forward to that challenge, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he handles it.
What are you most excited about day one of camp? What do you think? What's going to be going through your mind day one of camp, Coach?
Getting back out and coaching, number one, and not doing it on a Zoom meeting. But just, I think I'm an enthusiastic person. I love practice more than I love the games, and the games, it's kind of in the hands of the players, and practice is kind of in your hands. So, just watching their development, watching how they handle success and how they handle failure, when they've had a tough day and things like that. I'm just looking forward to the interaction, the one-on-one, the group interaction. I believe very strongly, that you've got 5 players, but they have to see it through one set of eyes. In other words, they have to all be on the same page. So watching that development and just watching us compete, we gave you a lot of things I'm looking forward to. So, I'm looking at a lot of things at practice.
Well, only a few short days until you are back until everyone is back at Tim Hortons Field. Coach Gibson, really appreciate you doing this. I can't wait to see you down there at Tim Hortons Field.
Same, you, Lily. Looking very forward to it. Looking forward to the fans, and I think we're going to have a great season, and we're going to make Hamilton proud.
And as we're continuing our conversation, focusing on the offensive line, very pleased to be joined by Brandon Revenberg. Rev, it's great to see you, man. What it feels like Christmas or what? What are you feeling right now? A couple days away.
A long-awaited Christmas, that's for sure. No, it's great to get the ball rolling and get back to it for sure.
Yeah, it's been a long time. How do you stay motivated? 20 months away from football.
I think it just comes down to staying focused the whole time. I mean, you kind of look at how we finished 2019. I know for myself personally, there's still a lot of hunger there. We got a lot of work to do, and that's definitely kept me motivated throughout the year and a half off.
And looking at the guys that are going to be coming into camp, it's going to be very familiar, right? And familiarity is such a key thing in this league. For you personally, what's it going to mean to get to camp on Saturday, to see Chris, to see Mike, to see Darius? I mean, familiar faces.
Oh, for sure. It's getting reunited, and we have some unfinished business to take care of, no doubt.
The unfinished business part of it is pretty huge because, a lot of people are going to think, oh, chip on the shoulder, 2019, such a good year, didn't get the result. But there's also 2019 was a long time ago. So how do you balance those two that was a long time ago, but we really want to win this?
Yeah, it's simple. I think you just take a day-by-day mentality, and I think that's something that's been kind of preached down from top all the way to the bottom in our organization. And it's focused on controllable factors, take it a day at a time, but don't lose sight of the goal that we have, right?
Coach Gibson, we just wrapped up a conversation with Coach Gibson, obviously a new face to this Ticats organization, but what are you kind of hoping to gain from his experience and with him and Coach O having their familiarity as well? What are you kind of excited about with Coach Gibson?
I'm assuming I'm going to say a quote that he would have said. If not, I know he said it many times. But more or less, he says, everyone's showing up to work with a toolbox, and he's just trying to put more tools in that for us, right? So it's just kind of learning from him, getting some more tricks of the trade, having a different perspective, and kind of learning off of that.
You've had a front row seat to see some guys develop. Jesse Gibbon last year, Darius Sirocco the last couple of years. For you, as someone who's a couple years older, but also watching Mike Filer and Chris Van Zyl, I mean, you're really kind of right in the middle of these guys. So for you personally, how do you kind of take what they teach you and teach it down? Like you're in a unique position on that offensive line.
Oh, for sure. And that's something Chris hasn't been around as long, but when I first got in there, Mike definitely took me under his wing and kind of showed me the ropes. And I think it's just something that you pass down, from, I don't say from generation to generation, but I mean, as far as each player in the offensive line, I feel like that's kind of your job to do is take the young ones under your wing, show them how to be a TICAT offensive lineman, and just help keep on building that reputation that we have.
How do you teach being a TICAT? It's not on you personally, obviously. It's kind of a bigger conversation of the organization. But these guys who are coming into camp, the Scotty Dills that are coming in, the Coulter Woodmansies that are coming into camp, how do you teach being a TICAT?
The biggest thing I think is just accountability. I mean, show up, go to work, and do what's asked and what's needed of you. And good things come at the end of the day. I mean, I feel like that's kind of what I did. I was pretty quiet, I was a sponge, took in as much information as I could and just constantly tried to perfect my craft, right? And I think that's what these young guys need to do as well.
You guys get to play in front of two very good quarterbacks and in front of, great running backs that you're going to be playing with. Just talk a little bit about Jeremiah Masoli and Dane Evans as competitors and the excitement of getting to, line up in front of them.
Oh, of course. I don't know for certain who's going to be back there, but I know that we're going to be in good hands with either. I mean, both these guys, I feel, are true competitors. They both want to earn that starting role. And I also know whoever's not in that starting role is definitely going to still help out the other player, right? There's not going to kind of be too much of that headbutting. They're definitely going to work together and better the team. So it's very exciting knowing that we're going to have a good backfield there.
And that starts from the top, right? I mean, that starts with Coach O. That starts with Tommy Condell. I mean, the idea that iron sharpens iron, it's not just – it doesn't matter if it's a backup left guard spot that people are fighting over or the quarterback spot. Really, you want someone who's going to bring out the best in you as a player and as a competitor.
Well, that's just it, right? A little competition always goes a long way.
What I want to ask a couple more here because the first meal, obviously COVID rules are going to be what they are, and they are what they are. Let's leave it at that. But the first team meal, the first offensive line team meal, what do you guys really craving once you get to Hamilton?
Is everything on the table here?
Everything's on the table. Let's theoretically take out wherever you want. Like, what's the first meal the offensive line is going to share together?
Well, I think that's just it. Everything's going to be on the table then. Yeah. Don't write anything off. The board, you're coming in hungry.
What are you most looking forward to about camp? And I know I got to ask, what are you least looking forward to about camp?
Most forward, honestly, I think it's just that camaraderie and getting the guys back together. What I'm least looking forward to is probably hitting those cold tubs again.
Not even the 2-a-days, but the cold tubs. That's I like.
The cold tub keeps you running. You got to hit them though. But yeah, when you first get in them, it's a little rough.
I do want to wrap up with this one because I was talking with Coach Gibson just a little earlier, and he mentioned that something that's probably overlooked is that when you practice, you're going up against the best. So how, the defense that you go against, you got to get Dylan Wynn. You got to stop Dylan Wynn. You got to stop Petty and Simone. So, I mean, talking about iron sharpens iron, what's that like competing against such a great defense? And do you have an appreciation for what other offensive lines have to do week in and week out.
Well, it's one of those things where 100%, like you said, iron sharpens iron. And if you're going to practice, and more or less it's very simple, the formula for football, right? What you put in as practice is what you're going to get out game time, right? So that's why you put forward the effort. You're going against stud players. These guys are great, all-stars. It's going to make you a better player at the end of the day, right? So there's a lot of learning there. And the nice thing is when you go up against guys like that are so competitive all the time, it makes you really excited to go against someone else.
They're guys you can actually hit, right? I mean, that's the key word.
Yeah, exactly.
Rev, it's great to see you. I can't wait to see you in person. I'll be waving from the 300 somewhere at training camp on Saturday. But thanks for doing this, man. Can't wait to see you back in the black and gold.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. Take care.
And as we're continuing our conversation talking about the offensive line, our CFL on TSN analyst on today's show is a former offensive lineman himself with the Queens Gales. There he is on your screen. You already know him. You know the voice when you hear it. Of course, it's Rod Smith. Rod, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Louie. And I'm glad that all voices that care about the CFL are going to get to talk a lot about it in the coming months. It's really exciting to be back.
I mean, I'm feeling the kind of like nervousness of training camp. I can't imagine what players are going through right now, but just the excitement and you mentioned it, just the idea to get to talk CFL and get to talk about games, I think is huge after everything this country, the world has been through in the last 18 months here.
Absolutely. It's good to get back at it. It'll be so nice to see. And strictly in football terms, how many times have we seen coming into a new season that a player, perhaps from an injury or retirement, hadn't played in over a year? You know, his last game would have been 18 months ago. And all of a sudden they're going to be playing football again. We're talking about one player. We're talking about an entire league. So a whole bunch of players, lots of question marks. I mean, a lot of things are the same. A lot of things have changed. Be so curious to see, including the impact of nobody playing football, or essentially none of the CFL players coming into 2021 would have played in 2020. So, I mean, there'll be a lot of things to wonder about coming into the season.
As mentioned, this episode is about the offensive line. And with the Ticats, there's a lot of continuity there. And it really is a solid mix of veteran leadership of, Chris Van Zyl, who gets cut from Toronto, signs with the Ticats. What does he do? Wins the most outstanding offensive line of the year, right? And then you got the young comers. Brandon Revenberg's not that young, but Darius Sirocco, Jesse Gibbon. This Ticats offensive line, they seem like they've been built to stay together for some time.
Absolutely. The one notable change from the team that went to the Grey Cup and went 15-3 in 2019, the left tackle Riker Matthews, who signed on with the BC Lions. But aside from that, you're right. A lot of leadership, especially that Van Zyl, on the right side. So I don't know if you're going to see Sirocco move to center. Mike Filer still there with his veteran presence, and it's good. It's a good scenario for, especially given their quarterback situation that they come in with now, to have that solid, experienced offensive line in front of them.
Let's talk about those quarterbacks, because Jeremiah Masoli has proven himself to be a very good quarterback in the Canadian Football League. But Dane Evans, the emergence of Dane Evans last season, I'm not sure there were very many people who could have predicted him coming into that role and doing what he did. And now at camp, it's going to be quite the competition to watch who's the starter week one.
It really will be. If we can flash back again, and you got to remind yourself what happened 2 years ago in the CFL, that to many of us, Jeremiah Masoli was having an MOP type of season. He looked terrific, and Hamilton had that great start. And then he gets hurt, and you wonder what's going to happen to the Ticats the rest of the way. And in comes Dane Evans, and they hardly missed a beat. They go 15-3. They go to the Grey Cup before losing to Winnipeg. So it really does make an intriguing question. And I feel for Masoli, who had to deal, of course, with the Johnny Manziel situation before. I remember when he emerged on a Labor Day in the rain against the Argos when he took over for Zach Collaros, I believe, in 2017. And took over that starting job. But he's always had to fight for that starting position and the respect that comes with it. And he certainly did that in 2019. I mean, I think he was arguably the best player in the CFL at that point when he got injured. So now we have this quarterback competition, and rightfully so. Dane Evans has certainly earned consideration to be the number one quarterback as well. It'll be intriguing. Based on what we saw of Masoli the last time he took a snap, though, I still would think that he's the number one guy in Hamilton.
Yeah, you mentioned he was having an MOP-like season. Of course, the MOP eventually went to Brandon Banks, and at 33 now, I think it's not wrong to say he's on the back end of his CFL career. But I mean, he's in good shape. He's he's not like one of those big jack guys who you're worried is going to deteriorate. What do you think Brandon Banks does as an encore here in 2021?
Well, once again, it all depends on any player, including the biggest stars as Banks is in the game, how they look when they show up to camp. I assume he's still in great shape. I mean, no one is really in that kind of football shape you can only get from playing. But still, I expect him to be a star. And it's funny, I talked about Masoli, Louis. You remember that Labor Day game? June Jones had taken over from Kent Austin, and he put in Masoli and replaced Zach Collaros with Masoli. And he also, instead of just relying on Speedy B as a special teams player in that role, which of course he was sensational, made him a more prominent receiver in that offense. And the rest is history. I mean, Brandon Banks just took off from there. And he showed what he can do in 2019 with his best season. I mean, he's such an electric player. And I'm just going to go on the assumption that these are rested stars and they show up hungry at camp and they're ready to go again. And I certainly think he's still young enough and talented enough to be a major force, of course, in the Canadian Football League in 2021. And
then, of course, Braylon Addison signed with Minnesota, but now he's back. And then DeVere Posey, talking about this with some other guys around the league. DeVere Posey is one of those names that kind of flies under the radar. Like he's the number 3 target for the Ticats, and he could be a number 1 target on any of the other 8 teams across the league.
I'd been with Montreal briefly with the BC Lions, and I remember him with the Argos in that 2017 Grey Cup. In the snow in Ottawa, Toronto playing Calgary, when Ricky Ray hit him for a touchdown that went over 100 yards, and one of the big plays, one of the 2 really big plays for the Argos in their upset victory in that Grey Cup. DeVere Posey can be a game breaker, to be sure.
And then reunited with Tommy Condell, who was also on that 2017 Toronto Argonauts coaching staff. So excited to see that. Let's talk a little bit about defense because, Teddy Laurent is back. Dylan Wynn is back. Julian Hauser, Simone Lawrence. And then what do? You add a Jovan Santos Knox, a Ciante Evans. I mean, for a defense that was very good in 2019, it looks really similar here in 2021.
It really does. And they had added Jagarrett Davis from Calgary in 2019 as well. That's such a good defensive line. Just the names that you mentioned inside when you have Ted Laurent and Dylan Wynn too. But I mean, all the names you bring up when we left off 2 years ago, you can easily see why the Ticats were the class of the East. And they were the favorite heading into the Grey Cup against Winnipeg, of course, knocked off by the Blue Bombers and looking to take it one step further this December on home field. That's their mission, of course. But yeah, I like their defense. I mean, what's not to like? They, I guess the biggest changes come in the secondary, but how strong they are up front makes them a force again, I think, in 2021.
And of course, the secondary filled with names like Jamal Roll, Tunde Adeleke, even Frankie Williams, who can play both sides of the ball, who wants to play special teams. He wants to play defense.
Great special teams player. And Delvin Breaux gone now, right? So
yeah, Rico Murray retiring, Delvin Breaux retiring. Yeah, for sure. I did want to ask you about Orlando Steinauer because he's one of those people that's been around the league for so long. But it's easy to forget that last year was his first season as a head coach in the CFL, right? And what does he do? He goes 15-3, takes his team to the Grey Cup, wins Coach of the Year. What does he do for an encore? I know he's going into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame probably around Grey Cup week, but what does he do for an encore here in 2021?
Well, as someone from the outside looking in at just the whole demeanor of that team, what I admired most, and I remember Orlando Steinauer very well as a player, and Steinauer just seemed to settle them down and seems to have great trust in his players and his other coaches to do their jobs. And I thought he was just a terrific head coach. And I think he's going to be feeling some civic pressure, if you will, maybe a little bit more than most coaches feel all the time, just because the Grey Cup is in Hamilton, and they will be favorites in the East. I would think that despite all the changes that the Argos made, they should be a lot more competitive. And Montreal, of course, too. And I certainly can't write off Ottawa with all the changes and a great coaching staff coming in there. But I think it'll be interesting to see how the Ticats do respond to this coming out of the gate after there was no season in 2020. The Grey Cup is at Tim Hortons Field in December, and many expect the Ticats to take it a step further than what they did in 2019 when they got to the Grey Cup and didn't win it. And it'll be interesting to see, but I really admire and respect Orlando Steinhauer, the football guy. He's just a terrific Hall of Fame player, and he's off to that kind of start as a head coach as well.
I know it's training camp for the players, but like I said, I got Milt Stegall lined up for this week. Glenn Suter is going to be stopping by. What's the CFL on TSN training camp look like heading into the season?
Well, still probably a few question marks as well, with our great, play-by-play man Chris Cuthbert leaving and now getting to call the Stanley Cup. So I may get an opportunity to call more games, but I don't, in studio. I'll be curious to see as the lineup is finally set. But Matt Dunnigan will be back, Milt Stegall, Davis Sanchez, Henry Burris had gone to the NFL for a coaching opportunity. So there's still a few pieces being moved around, but the core is still there. Very much so. A lot of people that have worked on coverage of the game for TSN for many years, and we all can't wait to get started again.
I was about to say, I know Chris Edwards has probably been waiting for August 5th more than anyone else kind of in the world. That is someone who's excited. Of course, we're all excited. I'm excited to get to talk to you about football. So thank you so much for doing this, Rod. I very much appreciate it.
Get me all fired up, Louie. Can't wait. Can't wait for the start of this season.
And as we get close to the end of the show, I'm very pleased to be joined by our featured alumni today. You know him. He's the Sultan. It's Marwan Hage. There he is on your screen. One of the all-time great offensive linemen of the Hamilton Ticats. Marwan, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here.
This time of year, I mean, you're not that removed from football. Do you still get the urge? Do you still want to put on the pads and block somebody, or what?
Well, you're never too far removed. I mean, it's always around you when the weather changes and May comes around, or in this case, about now right before camp. It's always you always reminisce in my position now. You always reminisce about, oh, this is the time I'm getting ready to go to camp. To you start smelling the grass, and it's a very exciting time of the year. Leading up to camp is a little nerve-wracking because you're going into a 2-3 weeks of battle, but it's always fun, especially now as a retired player. You miss it, and then you're quickly reminded that you won't last half a day. So it's just good to miss it.
Do you remember your first camp? Like what do you remember about first time stepping on the field? I'm not sure if it was still at Brock then or if it was at McMaster by then, but what do you remember the first camp with the Ticats?
Yeah, the first camp with the Ticats was, I always did McMaster, but it was in the backfield. McMaster was under construction at the time. We did like the back, it was way in the back. It was in between the forest. I just remember being very physical all the time. We always had physical camp because at the time we were in a rebuild mode. So we always had one of the hardest camps in the league, trying to reestablish ourselves as an organization and as a team. And they were very physical. And I remember my allergies would spike up being in that back forest. So I would always be fighting two battles, a football battle and an allergy battle in McMaster. But I had some of my best times there. I always feel like I went to Mac because I had about 9 camps there. So I feel like I'm a Mac alumni just by being there. Yeah. And I did my rehab at Mac, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, like, it's always, it's the best time where you get to meet all your friends and everybody looks great. Everybody's strong in the beginning of camp, and then it's all downhill from there because camp beats at you, man. So, and then you hear stories and you start spreading rumors in camp. I mean, Peter Darakowski and I think every year we spread the whole, hey guys, practice is going to be canceled. We're going to water park. I think every year we got the guys to believe like the buses are pulling up. We're going to the water park. And then we said it so much that we actually start believing ourselves. Like, well, what if there's a school bus? But yeah, you can't get away from camp. It is what it is.
I was about to say, you and Pete, I'm sure, have tons of great stories. And the offensive line especially. This whole show we've been talking about the guys on the offensive line and, the Canadians on the offensive line. And it really is a special group of guys, isn't it? The guys you play with, because you're literally in the trenches with those guys trying to, protect your quarterback. What's so special about the relationship between offensive linemen?
Well, the special bond is all have to work in unison, and it's hard. It's very hard to get a bunch of grown men, very fully developed muscular men, to work together and to trust each other. Because if one guy falls, the whole line looks bad. So it builds a character, and then these guys, they're going to be in camp together 24/7, more than they'll be with their wives, kids, and family. So you start building that trust. And then once you go through a whole season with somebody, just know that no matter what, this guy's got my back, good and bad, because it's not always good. So that's why you see these positions very tight. And usually the line is very loose. I mean, the lines I played on, there was a lot of great characters. I mean, we played some great characters, including myself. I did mature in that O-line room. Right, I wasn't as mature as you look today, so I had my ups and downs, but they were fun. They were a lot of fun, and you build brotherhood there. So I'm very fond to have played offensive line, and those O-line rooms, and they're very comfortable. They get very, very lax and fun to be in.
I'm always intrigued by the idea of camp where you're building as a team, but you're also competing. How do you balance that? Okay, like, hey, this guy's coming for my job. This guy wants to start, but also this guy's my teammate. This guy's got my back. What's that balance like as a player in camp?
Yeah, good question. There's two folds to that. Everybody's competing all the time in the pros. Your position is up for grabs. I mean, for me, I was 10 years with the Ticats, and every year they had some young guys coming in and competing. And it was great. It motivated me to stay on top of what I was doing and work harder and bring what I bring to the table. But soon, the first week is straight competing. You establish yourself. The second week, and eventually your starters are going to start floating, right? The guys who are on the team, the team's going to start assembling itself, and then people will fall in place. And there's always those last minute battles that will stretch even into week 1 and week 2 of the season. And, where two great guys are going at it for that one position. But as far as the O-line, usually the core of the O-line is already pre-established, right? And it's hard, unless you're going in and battling 6 centers. But usually you have a center from the previous year who has the edge and he performs. And then once the team is set up and everybody understands that's, the starters, the backup, whoever fits in role, and that's the gelling, everybody understand, okay, now this is where we are. The backup has to work harder to become a starter. The starter has to work way harder to stay a starter. Can't make a mistake, right? 2 games and you're benched. I mean, that was my rule. And the way I thought, 2 bad games in a row and you're gone. So, and that's it. That's what makes it. But eventually, everybody has to compete. You have to. In football, the tape doesn't lie, right? So you can give a best speech and then you go play bad games. And
yeah.
They don't lie.
I was talking to Mike Gibson about this earlier in the show. He's the offensive line coach for the Cats now. And, he thought that this was the most physically gifted offensive line. You look at guys, Darius Sirocco, Chris Van Zyl, someone I'm sure he's at the top of his game physically, even at the age he's at. How important is being in tip-top shape on that offensive line? Because I'm not going to play to the stereotype that linemen are just big guys who just stand there. That works in the NFL. It doesn't work in the CFL. How important is being in top physical shape on the offensive line?
It's the most important thing. I mean, the cliche about being fat and sloppy. And I think Van Zyl can play basketball with the best of them. I mean, I've seen him run. I've seen him work out. I've seen him do a lot of things. He doesn't even look like a lineman if you see him on the street. And that's some of the best linemen don't look like the stereotype. Being physical is very important. Being in shape, because it's demanding. Everybody is good at looking the top shape for 15 minutes, but what about the last 45 minutes, right? And that's what I'm sure these guys are out training, getting physical. And actually, I played for Mike Gibson early in my career. He was our line coach at one point, and then our OC, and we had good years. I think we had a very good line. I would say we were physical, but it's way long ago. But I'm sure the new linemen are more physical than what we were. But we had a pretty good offensive line at the time. A lot of seniors, a lot of veterans.
I'll let him know that you were a little offended by that.
I'll catch him on the sideline.
Yeah. There's a lot of new faces who are going to be trying to get on this offensive line, trying to make their spot on the team. What advice do you have for players who are either coming from the States or are drafted out of youth sports? What advice do you have someone this is their first Ticats training camp this week?
It's about the opportunity. I see what's happening in the league. I see a lot of guys retiring. Obviously coming off the pandemic 2 years, there's a lot of changes. And if I was young, that's the best position I want to be in. I want to be in a time where I can show and prove myself. So for all the young guys coming in, either from the US, from Canada, from university, from wherever you're coming in, even if they grab you from Europe. I mean, once you step on the field and you put your helmet, you're at ground zero. If you play good, you play. I would love to be in that position today. I'd love to be where guys are, the old guards are retiring. I can prove myself as a young kid. So I would just say compete. It's easy for me now looking back, but I would just go all out, man. Compete. You're playing for a great organization who was primed to win multiple Grey Cups before the pandemic and still primed right now. So it's the best times to be in Hamilton, I think. As far as what, they were on the verge of a legacy, 4 to 5 Grey Cups in a row from the way they played prior to the pandemic. So there's a lot of history there and a lot of building to where they are today. And if I'm a young kid, I'll just go 100%. I'll just compete. I would put no limitation. If I'm a kid that drafted from a Canadian university, why not now? Why not start today? So that's what I would do. And that's me looking back at it. I know the guys will have more challenges, more issues than what me just looking back. But if you told me today, my first year with the Ticats, that's exactly where I want to be. There's opportunity everywhere to play. And that's the hardest thing to do in the pros is to get on the field. A lot of guys play great, but never had tape because of circumstance, because they're backing up a 10-year vet. Yeah. So now it's the best time to make a name for yourself.
Well said. One more before I let you go. Obviously, this community well. You mentioned it there. This team looks like it's primed for a Grey Cup run. Best thing about that is that the Grey Cup is in Hamilton this year. What is it going to mean for just the city of Hamilton to be able to host this event in December, considering everything people have gone through in the last 18 months here?
I mean, I think very highly of the city of Hamilton. I owe the city of Hamilton a lot personally in my life and where I am, and the Ticats. You'll never hear me say one bad thing about Hamilton. Even now, I always tell my wife, I can't wait to go up and spend the day in Hamilton. It means a lot. I think, I remember the first time we got to the Grey Cup, which was my 10th year, how much the fans were happy because I was as happy as them. And then they turned it into a powerhouse organization. And like I said, we're just primed. You can just feel that, this is like, they're set up to be the team of the decade. And I'm not overselling it. It's like Calgary was, Montreal was, and you can see because everything was in place. And when you look at that and, they're offering a great product on the field, the fan are, I was there when we were getting booed walking in the stadium. So, but we loved it. I personally loved it because the person buying the ticket booing us, and that person deserves to have a great performance, a great show, and a winning team, which they do have now. So I think it'd be a great season for them, and if they can close it with the Grey Cup in Hamilton, it'd be a year to remember for the city, for the team, for Bob, for Scott Mitchell. I mean, I know how hard these guys have worked because I was there with them in the beginning.
Well said. Marwan, I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you. I'll see you guys on the field.
Thank you to Marwan for stopping by. Thank you as well to the CFL on TSN's Rod Smith. Always great to catch up with him. Thank you to Brandon Revenberg, and thank you to Coach Mike Gibson all guests on today's show. Thank you, the listener, the viewer, however you're deciding to get this podcast into your ears. We appreciate it. We will be back with a new episode. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you stay locked in right here. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It's been Louie B. This has been the 2021 season preview for the Hamilton Tiger Cats presented by TELUS. And again, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode.